Hello everybody and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program, where I've just been doing a little bit of research here because we are moving on from the Apollo era. We have now concluded all of the moon landings, and now we're going to be starting up with the initial, if I can pull this up here, the initial, first space stations, right? So we're going to be starting up with Salyut-1. That will be absolutely great. That, of course, ends up looking approximately like this. This line art rendition is the best image I've found of it. And as we can see here, this is a Soyuz coming on into dock here. We'll get to the Soyuz later. That's going to be next mission. But for right now, we need to get Salyut-1 launched. And this is going to be what the overall space station is going to end up looking like, approximately. And it'll be launching on a Proton K rocket, specifically, as we can see here, this Salyut launcher variant over on this side. So we're going to be designing the launcher based on these specifications, approximately. It's not going to be perfect. And we're just going to hop straight on in here to the VAB. Let's get going on this. So, this is going to be interesting for sure. I'm not 100% how we're going to handle all of this just yet. I'm pulling up the Salyut image on another screen here while we can design this. So for the moment, we're going to need, this is a 3 crew capacity module here. We could certainly go with like a cupola module, but it sure doesn't look like they had one of those. So instead, I think what we're going to do, we're not going to launch with any crew in this. This is going to be an automated launch. So to that end, we're going to start with having something along the line of a Prototype Octo 2, and this is going to be our base part here. Then, I'm going to toss in a singular battery here. So that is going to end up being a 200, something like that. And then, I don't know how accurate this is, but I'm going to toss a docking adapter up here. So this is going to end up being, if we go into our coupling, we're going to toss in, yeah, the Clampotron is way too big. We're going to go for a Clampotron Junior right there. Now, according to what I'm looking at here, what I showed previously, it looks like we do indeed need a pair of solar panels here. So that is great. We'll toss in, these are very much like 1x6s. So we're going to have a pair of these. They're going to be attached right about here. There we go. So it'll be something along the lines of this. And then this immediately jumps out to a significantly wider size. So this is going to be probably like a 2.5 meter-ish size. We would end up looking for, let's see here. I want to go into utility. Maybe like a hitchhiker storage container. That's too much size. That is too much. Maybe just a Mark 1 crew cabin. I feel like that's maybe a little long for what I'm looking for here, though. So maybe not exactly like that. We do need crew capacity on here, right? One thing I'm definitely thinking about doing is having a mobile processing lab on here. Now, that would end up meaning that we actually need to jump a little wider here or be a little bit off on our proportions, which is probably what will end up happening. So the mobile processing lab would not go here, but would instead go down here. And then I suppose we could go, if we're going to go a little off on the proportions anyway, we could go with a hitchhiker storage container. That's going to have a lot of capacity, right? So we can have 2 scientists in here, and the hitchhiker storage container can have an additional 4. This thing really only has a crew capacity of 2, which ends up meaning that we only need a crew capacity of 1 on this. So something like a Mark 1 lander can even might do the trick here. So this only has a crew capacity of 1. And really this should be rounded, but that's okay. We can then have some sort of an adapter here. So what do we got for adapters? Maybe a little bit wider than this. It definitely needs to be bigger than this one. That's about right. Okay, now in reality, if I pull this back over to this monitor, we can look at this and we can see this section is wider than this section, right? We're kind of doing that opposite just because of KSP limitations here. So it's going to end up being something kind of like that. We can get rid of this adapter, and then, of course, we need to be thinking about a couple of other things. One, do we have a decent reaction wheel in this? No reaction wheel in the Octo 2. We do have a reaction wheel in the lander can. Okay, noted. I'm still going to toss a reaction wheel down here. Just because I feel like it's probably necessary, and I think that covers some of the additional module parts over here reasonably well. So that seems okay. Now, down on this side, we need some form of propellant for this, although I think in reality there wasn't. I don't know, I'd have to double check that. I think what we'll do for right now is we're just going to toss in, there's another jump here. It could be potentially, based on the angle, it could be an adapter, or it could be not. I think I'm going to run a Rockamax brand adapter here. Well, that's not a fuel adapter. What I really want is a fuel adapter here. So this is obviously not the right size, but something kind of like this. No, I think it really does jump straight down in size. So what we would end up doing is having something along the lines of a fairly small fuel tank here. And I'm going to have our thrusters be a little bit different than normal. So we would end up going for something kind of like this. It jumps straight on down in size, right? And it would end up being something like that. Then we would need to have a pair of additional solar panels on here. So we would grab these photovoltaic panels and they would go on approximately here-ish. Size is definitely a little bit off on this. No doubt about that. But then we can just toss on a adapter here. So a docking port. Clampetron Jr. I think is good for the Soyuz, so we'll do something like that. Then they had communications, it looks like, and we could use something along the lines of a high-gain antenna here. So somewhere around here, but I'm going to rotate it around to go this way. So then that'll get extended out like so. Then we can have some science experiments on here. So that would end up looking, and we may want to toss a Science Junior here. Something like that. Yeah, something like that. So a Science Junior goes on there. We would then put on a magnetometer. We can put that about here. We would put on a press map barometer. We just want to have data for this lab, right? That is the goal here. So a mystery goo containment unit can go down over here, and we would end up putting on... What else do we need? We don't need an experiment storage system here. We could use a thermometer. That's a surface scanning module. A too-hot thermometer could go about here. Atmospheric spectrovariometer could go over this direction. I'm not sure we're going to get any actual data out of that. Seismic accelerometer that we're definitely not going to get any data out of. But you never know. You might have a spacequake. We're not going to have a spacequake. That doesn't even make sense. So we'll do something about like that for our science. We, of course, want to have our high-gain antenna stowed for the time being, as well as our photovoltaic panels retracted. So this is going to end up being our design for Salyut-1. I think we'll move these guys up just a smidge here so that they look a little bit better. Okay, so something kind of like this. Then, we're going to want to have at least some amount of propulsion, right? So let's toss on some twitches over here so that we can propel ourselves some amount of distance. And that'll be absolutely fine there. We've got 857 meters per second on that. It should be okay. That should be sufficient. So, now we're going to need to deliver this, right? No doubt about that. For the moment, I think we'll just have it be docked together and we'll strut them, which we'll definitely unstrut them here in a bit. I grabbed that. I meant to duplicate it. There we go. So we'll have that be docked together, and now we're going to start working on the actual launch vehicle for this. So as I said previously, that is going to be this Proton K rocket here. So that's absolutely fine. We can see some fairing stuff going on up here. This is probably the rocket itself, or rather the station itself here, and then a fairing up this way. So that's reasonably fine. We can probably emulate something like that. So what that would end up being, of course, is a fairing here that would go up to like here. That's probably something we can't do. So what I think I'll do instead is we'll just have a fairing that encapsulates all of this, and that'll be fine. So we'll put in a payload fairing. This could be a 2.5 meter payload fairing. Now, we're not really going to be able to have it go straight up like this because it'll clip through. It'll have to bow out ever so slightly. And it doesn't have to go out very far. Something kind of like this. Okay, so that fairing will be absolutely fine. Now, I would like to get some strut work done here. I think struts will be reasonably important as we go up. So I want to make sure that we are strutted together here. I also want to make sure that we're strutted together here for right now. So hopefully that'll be good on the struts. And that will be our delivery portion here. We'll call this Salyut-1. There we go. And now, looking at the rocket here, I think that we have, like, this section basically covered, and we would be starting up here, which this is, like, probably some sort of a stage 3. This would be a stage 2, and this would be stage 1 and kind of a stage 0 out over here with the side boosters, right? So that would be what we would end up looking for. It feels like it's maybe a lot, but this is what, 2.5 meter size? Yeah, this is Rockamax size. Okay, so that's looking good. We're basically a straight shot down from here. So this will end up being probably something along the lines of a Jumbo 64 here. Actually, no. This stage is much shorter than that. So this is going to be a 32. And again, it's probably more efficient for us, for our purposes here, to combine together. But we'll go with a Poodle here. And we'll go with a TD25 decoupler. Then I'm going to do this Jumbo 64 tank. We're going to put a second Poodle on, and this is where we start to hit some Kerbal inefficiencies here. We probably would be better off with just a single high-end engine here. That's a compact. What I actually want is a single... Yeah, this guy. This guy right here. Okay. Then we'll put on a 2.5 meter decoupler here. So coupling, TD25 decoupler. It's gray, which I don't necessarily love, but it's fine for now. So from here, we would then go down another... It wouldn't go very far, to be honest. It would be perhaps a 32 or so. So a 32 here. We'll make that be white. That'll be fine for the time being. And now we have a fuel adapter going down in size, like we did previously. So that would end up being not this size, that's for sure. Definitely not Carbonine. We want... Let's see. This one. And then I think maybe also this one. Yeah, I think that's correct. So I would want these to also be white for right now. And then we would just run a couple of T800 fuel tanks here. Something along the lines of this, right? So we've got that traditional, like... We've got that traditional Soviet-style design where it tapers down over here. And then the question is, how many of these things do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm guessing there's at least 6 of these boosters. Let me see if I can find a better reference on that. So our first stage here, powered by 6 RD253 14D48s. Okay. Yes. So this should, I believe, be 6. So we're going to strap on some... perhaps T800s. Yeah, I think T800s make sense here. So we're going to go to coupling. We're going to grab these radial decouplers. We're going to go up to 6 couple. And we're going to put them in about like this. That seems approximately correct. And we're going to put on a T800. We'll put that approximately here. I want these top ones to be white, but I think these ones having the striping is reasonably okay. Moving those ever so gently down. And then, of course, we're going to need to taper these in. This is way too big. Gotcha. That is way, way too big. So we need different size of tapering. Do we have a different size? I don't think so. So I think we're going to have to go with these guys. And we could certainly move them up a bit. They're going to be clipped in, but that's kind of okay. We want them to be starting, just double checking the image here. We want them to be starting significantly before it starts to taper down, but then this is just flat here, right? So unfortunately, we don't have a different size of these tapered fuel tanks. I suppose we could use these adapters here, though. Those could definitely work. They do have fuel in them. That's significantly the wrong size. So this is 2.5 to 1.25 meter. Okay, we definitely want them to be smaller than that. One thing we could simply do is we could go back to having these fuel tanks here, right? And really, this should be more standoff, now that I think about it. Because what we really want here is we want to have these be tapering in up here, right? So that's definitely going to be significantly further. So we would end up doing something like this, and then we would have, in our aerodynamics, we would end up going with these sorts of advanced nose cones, right? Now, these do not actually have any fuel in them, but we can certainly duplicate these fuel tanks or go for larger tanks. And that's kind of what I'm leaning towards right now, is we go for larger tanks on the outside. So it would be something kind of like... Yeah, now that we have space here, this is somewhat acceptable. Somewhat. We'll have to strut them together a bit. I don't know about coloration here. It'll be something kind of like that, I guess. And then we've moved these up here. I feel like these are too big. Maybe we need to go for an intermediate size, like the FL size. I think that's a better size for us here, to be honest. The FL size definitely seems to work a little bit better. So we would bring this up to about here. We would want to drop these down to about there. And then we would use one of these adapters, although these are, of course, not the right size. These are not the right size either. And I don't know that we have an... Well, actually, these are FL. They're kind of huge. But they are FL in size. And they're kind of not rotated correctly either. Okay, noted. We're going to have to rotate these manually, it looks like, to get them to be a bit more correct. About here or so. We may want to drop off these tanks, actually, and just have these go in here. That's about the right size. Okay. I like that. So now we would drop in these guys, if I can grab the decoupler here, and move that in just ever so slightly, about like that. Now I want to turn off snapping, and we're going to rotate these to be there. That looks approximately correct. I like it. So now we'll do something like this. Now, to be clear, in reality, this tapering portion was significantly less extreme. No doubt about that. But this gives us a decent starting point. So this engine that we'd have in the center here, we'll see what we need for thrust to weight. I'm going to start with this being a T45. And then if I can actually get that position, there we go. I'm going to start with that being a T45 swivel engine. We're definitely going to need to run a fuel line from the outside in, so we could do that right here. And that didn't actually take. There we go. And then I would like to run a strut connector just to make sure that these are connected up. Here, I want to connect them inward, so we'll do it from like here into about here. And I'll also connect them to each other. So something about like that for our strut work. Now, these are not going to do a great Korolev cross because we are mounted where we are. That's okay for the Proton, but for the Soyuz, we're definitely going to have a proper Korolev cross happening. So that'll be fine. Now, what are we at for thrust to weight here? And we also need to make sure that we ditch our solid fuel up here, otherwise we're going to have significant problems. So if we do this, that's a 0.06 thrust to weight, which is extraordinarily unsurprising. I think for the moment, we're going to try tossing mainsails out here. They're obviously too big. We're going to have to go with the 1.875 meter variant. And that puts us at significantly over thrust. So we can probably save some money on this design. So we would end up maybe going back to skippers. How's that looking? 1.27. It's a little bit on the small side here. Do we not have a 1.875 meter? Apparently there's not a 1.875 meter on skippers. That's okay. I would like to potentially upgrade these a little bit. So 568. Yeah, the mainsail is overkill. The skipper is a little bit underkill here. A little bit underkill. What if we were to, hypothetically, have this go to a compact? I don't really love the compact here. But what if we were to drop this and make that be a skipper as well? 1.41. It's a little low on the thrust to weight ratio, but overall, I think that's okay. It's going to be a pretty long burn. And then, of course, we'll have to check our staging. So this is maybe acceptable. I don't like the fact that these don't have a 1.875 meter variant. That's for sure. So we would end up going for probably a compact version. But that definitely saves us a lot of money by downgrading that from a mainsail. Okay. Now, we may want to toss a mech jeb on here as well, because we're going to be having automated launches, right? So we could certainly think about that. That would be under... Where is mech jeb? Is that under science? I don't think so. Command and control? Okay. So we'll toss a mech jeb up over here. We really only need one. And we would end up putting that possibly about here. Okay. Let's run a quick simulation of this and see how it goes, although I think we need to lower these guys down just a hair to be about here. Okay, that'll do for now. And let's check our staging here. That's probably important. So these would fall off. All of this fires at once. These fall off. Yeah, this staging is definitely wrong. So this would end up firing at the same time here. Yes, that engine fires, and then this engine would fire. The fairing will do manually, and then the twitches for our in-space maneuvering of this engine, or rather of this station. So that'll do right there. We are not going to be bringing any Kerbals on this initial launch. We're going to launch this uncrewed, and then we're going to dock up to it as part of our next mission. Let's put this out on the pad and see how it flies. I'm expecting it to fly okay. It's lacking fins, but in any of the reference images that I looked at, I've not seen any tail fins on this particular rocket, so we're assuming that there aren't any for right now. That's maybe a bad assumption, but let's go. I guess we could grab a seismic scan and atmospheric analysis here, but the atmospheric analysis is stowed, so we can't do that without getting rid of this fairing. We could grab our seismic scan anyway. We're not going to get any other seismic data, so we might as well. And actually, let's have MechJeb do our launch. So I want to... Can we not do launch autopilot yet? Apparently we don't have that unlocked yet. Okay, we'll do it manually. That's fine. That's absolutely fine. So off we go. What are we targeting for our orbit here? We are targeting 200 by 222. And hopefully this doesn't fail on us. This isn't a simulated flight, actually. We're just going to go for this. A bit slow off the pad, but we expect that. No problem whatsoever there. That's completely and totally expected. So we're going to be burning off... I want to double check our fuel here. Yep, we're going to be burning off our side boosters here. That's interesting. It's only pulling out of this fuel tank. I expected it to pull out of this whole stack. Let's see if it moves down the stack. Looks like it is. Okay, now it's pulling from these two. So that's fine. Our apoapsis height is only about 4 kilometers right now. I don't know how the turning of this rocket is going to go. That's going to be very interesting for sure. Let's find out. Okay, I just want to park about here for right now. I do see a little bit of bending happening. So that is a little bit disconcerting. But for the moment, let's just make our way on over here. I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal. This does feel reasonably well controllable. Yeah, we're actually having a hard time turning here. We are picking up a little bit of a roll, which I'm attempting to counteract. And let's just make our way on down here to the horizon. Ooh, we're definitely wanting to go... Oh, wow, okay. This thing doesn't really like to gravity turn. Noted. I'm not hugely surprised about that, though. Yeah, I'm not hugely surprised about that one. We're going to try to hold attitude here for a bit. We're about to lose our side boosters. And there we go. That's actually a very nice decoupling. Better than I expected it to be, for sure. You know, we probably do have access to Smart ASS at this point, which is very convenient. And yes, we do. So I want to go to horizontal velocity up here with Smart ASS. That's going to be much more efficient than SAS. Okay, that's a big bend happening there. I'm going to turn off this gimbal. And at this point, I'm going to go to prograde. You might ask why? It's because I'm noting our time to apoapsis going down. This has low thrust to weight in it at this point. And this is part of what I was talking about with having these multiple stages here probably not being ideal. Yeah, it's just this low thrust to weight right now. So for the moment, that's reasonably fine. We can bring this upwards. We're going to need more altitude here. This is our first time flying this rocket, so we're just feeling it out right now. We're definitely going to need a lot more on the verticality here. We can see our time to apoapsis is barely going down right now, so we're just going to park here at about 45 degrees. There, now time to apoapsis is going up. That's good. We just didn't have enough... I want to be going the other direction right now. Okay. We just didn't have quite enough verticality. Let's turn this gimbal back on for the moment. Okay, there we go. And back on. Cool. We can see we definitely pick up a big ol' wiggle from this gimbal being on. I'm going to turn the gimbal limit way down to like 5%. But otherwise, we seem to be doing reasonably well here. Yeah, that solves the problem. I like it. So we're targeting a 200-kilometer apoapsis here. Our overall target is 200 by 222. And we'd like it to be equatorial as well. So we're just going to continue to push up our apoapsis here. We need to get a good amount of additional speed, of course. This stage is going to be burnt out fairly soon here. And then we're going to be heading over to this stage, which is even lower thrust to weight. So we definitely want to push out the distance to apoapsis here a bit. We certainly want to get that up into space. No doubt about that. So let's get some vertical speed going here. We've got a decent amount of horizontal, but we need quite a lot of vertical. So we were definitely too aggressive on our gravity turn there. There's no doubt about that. That is a lesson learned for future launches of this Proton rocket. However, we can now ditch this fairing, which is going to save us quite a lot of weight. And there we go. So that stage is now burnt out, and we're just going to continue to push up with our apoapsis here. We can see that our time to apoapsis is still going up, and that's good. That is a very, very, very good sign. We've got a lot of delta V left in this thing. No doubt about that. We could put this in a lot of places. That's for sure. For the time being, I'm going to position us over here. I'm wondering if we would be maybe okay to burn prograde right now. Let's see what that looks like. Do we have enough speed for that? We probably do, all things considered. Let's grab our atmospheric analysis. Yeah, we've got enough speed. Looks good. I would like to alter our trajectory here a little bit, so I'm going to go into maneuver mode here. I want to look at our inclination. Yeah, we're off by 1.7. I'm not shocked by that. I'm working on potentially altering that a little bit here by pulling this down. 1.6. Okay. Let's sit at kill rot right now. 1.5. 1.4. 1.3. Yeah, let's just head down to 45 degrees here. I want to alter this inclination as much as we can. Otherwise, this is all looking good. 1.4. Okay, so if we're going back up, then there's not really much we can do. We'll have to change our inclination once we get there. That's okay. So we're in space right now. We're, of course, now at maximum efficiency for our engines, so that is great. And we're just going to continue to burn here. How are we looking with physics warp? Looks very good. Okay, so we're going to physics warp this up to 200 kilometers. I'm going to come out of physics warp here as we push on up. It's going to get faster and faster and faster. That'll do. Beautiful. So once we get to that apoapsis, we're going to bring that around to 222. This was not in a perfectly circular orbit. So we're going to bring that on down to about here. And of course, we've got way more fuel than we need. Now, a big part of that, of course, as we have this wiggling going on, that's noted. A big part of the reason why we're so overbuilt right now, of course, is because in reality, the numbers are like 10 times higher, right? So that's fine. We can physics warp our way on over. I mean, whoa, okay. This thing is really, really rocking around. Let's turn the Smart ASS off. I did not really expect Smart ASS to be doing this at this point. Huh. We just don't have a good enough joint here, I guess. Noted. So we should probably link this here to here if we want to fix that problem. For right now, we're going to warp on around here, and we're going to prepare for this burn. But yeah, we've definitely got some weakness in this joint. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to ditch this fuel. So I'm going to decouple that right now. That alone will likely fix the problem. There's just too much weight down here right now. So that's noted. No massive issue there, of course. We'll just ditch that to solve this problem for now. We should also probably consider extending our solar panels. That would be a useful thing to do. So we'll get those extended on out. Not that we're going to get anything from them just now, but 210 mark. This engine is not activated. Okay, we'll activate the engine. It's slightly late, but that's not a problem. So at this point, we want to bring our apoapsis up to 222. Okay, 18, 19, 20, 21, and 22. That'll do. Now we need to change our inclination here, because I'd like our inclination to actually be at 0. So we could set, like... I don't want to set anything as target right now. For now, let's just add a maneuver here and see what we get. 0.2, and starting to go up, so our timing is a bit off. Here we go. That'll do. So we'll get into position for that. We'll just head on over to this node. And let's get this done. That's going to be a 58.6 meter per second burn. Not a big deal. So off we go. And we've just about got this in position. Once we have it in position, we'll be ditching this, of course. It's a lot of extra fuel to be ditching, but, you know, we're overbuilt, so that's fine. And we've got about a minute here. 50 seconds. 40, 30, 20, 10. And mark. Okay, just finishing up this burn here. Overshot it a little bit, but our inclination is 0.0, so we're going to call that good. So we're going to go to kill rot here. Let's ditch this stage. So in order to do that, we actually have to undock here. There we go. We'll activate these engines and just get a tiny, tiny amount of distance here. Just that burned that much. We have 82 seconds to burn here. It must have pulled some fuel from here. I didn't expect that. There's no way that we burned that much just from doing that. Yeah, no way. It definitely didn't happen. So that's fine. We'll just have a little bit of distance here, and there is our first space station in a nice orbit here. So we'll take this over to, like, we'll take it over to prograde. That'll be fine. and we'll just park it here at Prograde. We'll be visiting this in the next episode. But that is actually our first mission completed here, so let's grab ourselves our payment for that, 200k, and I'll mark that off on the list. But it is past time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to visit this station in a Soyuz. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Shadowwolf, Andy McGar, Spartan News, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, Soccerman12 UK, Kentogan, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.